Hey there, welcome to the Agile Arcade. My name's Andy C. And if your process is more theatre than delivery, then you are in the absolute right place. And welcome to my very first video, full video on the channel. Today what we're going to be talking about is Jira. And we're going to be talking about Jira a lot as time goes on, but we're going to be talking about Jira and the reasons why and why not you might want to get yourself onto your Jira journey. So we're going to be diving into some of the pros, and we'll be talking about some of the pros and some of the cons as well. And then in a future video, if you do decide that Jira is for you and you've not got yourself set up yet, we will be doing a quick start guide to getting yourself introduced, and we'll be doing a few of those. So we're going to be doing a kind of just getting yourself set up and installed, and then we'll also be talking about how to get yourself set up, just get yourself going with some basic spaces, aka projects. More on that in another video later on. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into our pros and cons of Jira and why you might want to go and find yourself installing it or not installing it. We'll see you in there. Okay, well, let's first of all talk about some of the reasons why you might want to get yourself into Jira. If you're a software company, if you're developing software, then Jira is definitely going to be something you've heard of, but not necessarily the only time you'll have heard of Jira. It's a good tool for doing all sorts of things. It's a pretty multi-purpose tool. So we're going to dive into some of the pros first, and then we're going to look at some of the reasons why actually you might not want to get yourself Jira, why it might not be right for you. Now, first thing, major caveat, I am not an employee of Atlassian, and I have never been an employee of Atlassian. I am not being paid by Atlassian, and I am not on their books. So that means that I can also now talk to you a little bit more critically about Jira. Now, I mentioned in my intro video that I've been a Jira administrator for well over 15 years, so I know the tool pretty well. Quite often what I'll say to people is, I don't know a lot of things, but I do know Jira. So it does give me a kind of unique perspective on what I think is really good, and there are some things in there which I think are not so good, and I will talk to you about those, and I'll be honest with you about those as well, because Jira isn't necessarily going to be the answer for all of you. Hopefully that doesn't mean you're going to go and watch another channel somewhere on something else like monday.com. We will also be talking about some Agile aspects as well, that not necessarily tying to Jira itself, and we'll also be talking about Confluence, which is a completely different tool, but more on that later. So let's dive into the pros first, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I mean by each heading. Okay, so first up is flexibility. Now, for me, this is both the biggest advantage and also the biggest disadvantage with Jira. And we'll talk more later on about how you can best optimize your Jira, because it allows you to do pretty much whatever you want, which is fantastic. You can have so much flexibility in the tool, and you can design it however you like. That can lead to problems down the line if you don't manage it properly. It can become very heavyweight in the process, and we'll talk about that in the cons in a moment. But in terms of flexibility, one of the beauties of Jira is the ability to be able to do anything you like, specifically around things like your issue types, your issue type hierarchy, your custom fields, and most importantly, your workflows. So workflows allow you to define how work goes from point A to point B, the rules that guide it from that point to another point. So if you think about a workflow in terms of a workflow diagram, so you've got an entry point, and then you've got points throughout that process, things that you want to happen, whether you want work to start, whether you want there to be testing, whether you want there to be other validations or deployments, whatever you want it to be. You can have statuses and you can have transitions which go between those statuses, where you can set rules and say, okay, for me to be able to go from point A to point B, I need all of these things to be true. So I might need an assignee, I might need an estimate attached. So you're able to do that using workflow customization, and it's incredibly flexible and has a workflow designer. And that is one of the biggest advantages of Jira, in my opinion. You also have the ability to set custom fields. So if you need to capture specific information, you can absolutely do that. You can set specific issue types up. So you might have some default things like stories and tasks. You might have something that's very unique to your business that you also want to capture. And using the custom fields, you can also capture all of that data within those issue types, those issues as well. So huge amounts of flexibility and a lot of ability to design the system however you want it and use it however you feel that you need to, however you see fit. So there you go. That is pro number 1, flexibility. Pro number 2, the ability to be able to document your SDLC. Now, this is a slightly unusual one, but it's something that I think is really important. So as a manager, I am often involved in the definition of our SDLC, our software development lifecycle. So I'm thinking about how we deliver software, the things that we need to do to be able to deliver that software, support that software, maintain that software. And as such, I want to be able to document what that process is going to be. Now, quite often what you would do is you would make a document and you say, this is our process and everybody must follow this. The nice thing about Jira and the way that you can customize workflows, to the first point, is that it allows you to essentially document your SDLC straight into the tool that you're going to use. So you can build that workflow up, you can design all your forms and your custom fields and all your issue types and everything else like that, and it's just defined in the tool. So often you don't need to necessarily do very much more other than perhaps to write a little bit of supporting documentation, and then you can even screen grab your workflows and drop them in there and say, this is our process, this is our workflow. So there you go. That is the ability to document your SDLC within Jira. We'll talk more about that on a later video. Okay, point number 3, pro number 3, is the expansibility, the expandability of the product itself. So Jira is incredibly good at being used for a multitude of different things. So you don't just use it for software development nowadays, you can use it for managing your service desk. Other teams within the organization might manage it for all sorts of things. Your IT team might use it, your human resources or people team might use it, your sales team could use it. Anything that needs a workflow can, in theory, be used in Jira, which makes it incredibly expandable from that point of view. But also, it comes with a fantastic marketplace. Being as it is so well supported and so well known and so well recognized, there is a huge marketplace which allows you to pick a number of different things, whether that's reporting tools or graphing tools or adding some test management suites or something around sales. All of those things, you can go to the marketplace. If there's something you're looking for, generally you can find it. Some things are free and some things are paid for, and we'll talk about the cost implications in slightly later on in the video. But ultimately, it's incredibly expandable. So if you're running into an issue and you think, oh, do you know what, I really wish I could do this thing, quite often you can go to the marketplace and you can find something that will do the job for you, especially around reporting. That is something that can be quite limited in Jira, and so quite often there is an answer to that question in the marketplace. Okay, pro number 4, which we've already sort of touched on, is the fact that that Jira is multifunctional. So you can use it. You don't have to just use it for software. It's not just a software tool. Years ago it was very much rooted in software development. It was built by software developers for software developers. The founders of Atlassian were software developers themselves, and they really felt that there wasn't anything in the industry that would do the sorts of things they needed it to do, and so they created Jira themselves. And obviously now it's one of the largest software companies in the world, and it is an industry standard. But it's grown to so much more than that now, and as I've already mentioned, you can use it as a service desk tool. You can use it for anything that requires any kind of workflow or tracking. You can even use it for managing your own personal to-do list if that's your bag. So it is multifunctional, which is fantastic. So quite often when software companies bring the tool into their business, they'll also find that other parts of the business that are not even related to software development might start looking at it and going, hey, I think we could make some good use of this. So that makes it a compelling proposition for many businesses because it can be used. It's so expandable, so flexible, so customizable that it can be used for a multitude of different things. Okay, finally, pro number 5 is the fact that it is an industry-leading tool. So Atlassian have been around for a long time, well over 20 years, and they're well established in the market. And I've used lots of different tools over the years, some that are free, some that are not free, and I've always found Jira to be the tool that satisfies most of my needs. So I've used things like Azure DevOps. I used a tool called Fogbugs many years ago. I've used some free Apache tools, all sorts of things like that, spreadsheets and our own inbuilt databases and lots of things like that for tracking issues all the way through. But Jira has been the only one that actually gives the level of flexibility and customization that really I've needed, and it's always been the tool that I've gone back to, and it's always been the tool that I've encouraged businesses to use when I've gone into there, because quite often what they're doing isn't really working for them, but it's never perfect. And again, I'll talk about that later on. Okay, let's talk about some of the cons then. And as I mentioned before, I am not on the payroll of Atlassian, so I can tell them how it is. There have been some frustrations for Jira over the years for me, and it may be the sort of thing where you go, do you know what, this isn't right for me. There are a lot of good tools out there now. Atlassian are not the only providers of this sort of thing. There are some good tools out there which are perfectly adequate for your needs. Something like Monday.com is probably the biggest competitor, and that could be something to go and have a look at as well. If you're evaluating different tools, that could be the one you want to have a look at. But let's talk about some of the reasons why you might not want to include Jira in your organization. First up is cost. Now, Atlassian are very crafty when it comes to the way that their pricing model works, and I have a bit of an issue with this. Now, in the grand scheme of things, for a large organization, the cost of Jira probably isn't so significant. It might not be as bad as you might think when you compare it to some of the other tools, and also when you think about what it is that Jira delivers. But cost is a bit of a problem. Now, if you're just starting out, if you're a company of less than 10 people, Jira is very, very cheap, or quite often just free. Actually, for the free edition, it's free forever for less than 10 users. Absolutely fantastic. And we'll talk about that when we talk about getting Jira set up. We'll talk about the cost implications there. So it starts very cheap. But as your organization grows or your department grows, the cost will start to go up quite quickly. Now, if you just use standard vanilla Jira out of the box, it's not all that pricey. And what I'm not going to do now is talk to you about the specific pricing models and the specific prices, because obviously when this video goes out, that's likely to change. So please do go to the Atlassian website if you're thinking about getting it and go and have a look at the cost. Where Atlassian starts to get really expensive is when you start to expand it and when you start to get more people on board. So the more people that you get on board, obviously the license cost goes up. Now there are breakpoints, so as you start to get people on, the more people you get on, the price per user does drop, which is great, but obviously it does mount up. Those price breaks aren't absolutely incredible. They are generally, when you've got an organization where you've got maybe 200 or 300 engineers, then the cost is going to be reasonably high. But where it really becomes a problem is if you've got an organization of 200 or 300 people, those 200 or 300 people are going to say, hey, I need a tool to help me do this, or I need a tool to help me do that, or we need better reporting, or we need better dashboards. As soon as you start to add things to Jira, that is where the licensing model starts to get really, really pricey. So the way that the licensing model works in Jira, say you have 200 users in your system, and you say, I want to get myself a test management suite attached to the tool. Great, you can build it straight into Jira. It's absolutely fantastic. You can absolutely do that. However, you might only have 5 or 6 engineers, test and QA engineers, that are actually going to use that part of the tool. You will pay for 200. Doesn't matter. That is the way the licensing model works. So you might say, I want some management reporting tools. That's great. You might only have 3 or 4 managers that are going to use it. You will pay for 200. If you have 200 users, you will pay for 200 licenses of whatever add-on that you add in there. Unless that particular add-on has its own separate licensing agreement, you will pay for 200 licenses. So once you start to expand Jira, it can become very, very expensive very, very quickly. So if you're still interested in that, that's fine, but I would think very carefully about what sort of tools you want to use, especially as you start to grow your organization. Even when you're quite small, if you've got growth plans and you think, do you know what, we might be 10 now, so it's free and the add-ons are relatively cheap, think about where you want to be in 2 or 3 years' time. If you've got 10 or 15 different add-ons in there, when you're 200 users or 300 users, you're going to be paying for 300 licenses of all of that stuff. So it's going to get quite pricey. So even when you're small, think about the sorts of things that you want to use in Jira. What is really important to you? What is really going to bring value to you? And if it doesn't, uninstall it. Don't use it. The nice thing is that quite often you'll get a trial as well. So you can trial these things for 30 days before you'll start getting billed for it. Definitely make good use of that. Be very strategic about when you apply those trials so you get the best use out of them, so that you can make a decision at the end of that period as to whether that is an add-on that you want to continue with. Okay, So second con is related to one of the pros, actually, which is around complexity and flexibility. So we talked about how great Jira is at being flexible, and it is. It is so flexible and expandable, and that's brilliant. It is also its biggest curse. People with little knowledge of Jira will come in and say, my goodness me, I can do all of these things. I can have all of these workflows. I can build all these rules in. I can have all of these custom fields and issue types and all of these amazing things, which you can. Do it with caution, because what happens is, and I see this in every organization that I go into, Jira becomes incredibly complicated and overbearing. And so what you end up hearing is, I really hate Jira. I can't get my job done because I can't go from this point to this point without filling in 50 different fields that I don't care about. And that is the biggest issue with Jira, is it is very open and very flexible. The out-of-the-box Jira installation that you get is very simple. The workflows and processes you get are very simple. People suddenly realize they can expand them to their heart's content, and before you know it, you've got a Jira that is practically unmanageable and very, very difficult for people to use or engage with, and then people hate it. And I think 99 times out of 100, when I've gone into an organization that's using Jira and you hear people say they hate it, it's more often than not to do with how it's been set up. So the flexibility is fantastic, but use with caution and make sure you know what you're doing and you have a good plan for it beforehand. I will try and cover some of this off with you as we go through the videos over the coming weeks. Okay, so the next con is very much related to the previous one, which is the fact that Jira is very, very heavyweight. Now, if you install it out of the box and you keep it very simple, it can be a very, very simple tool to use, but it might not be right for you. It is an incredibly powerful tool and it will allow you to do whatever you need it to do, but maybe take a moment to think about whether this is what you really need. If there's maybe just one or two of you building some software, do you really need it? Are the tools in GitHub going to provide you what you need in terms of tracking and task management? You might find that just much more simple approach to task management is all you need, and maybe Jira is something you come back and revisit later on. It's a great piece of enterprise software and it is really good for small teams. I like it. I've used it in small teams before, but it might not be right for you. Just check that you're happy that it's right for you. It can be a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, especially if you start to expand it, and so it can become very heavyweight and people can become disengaged with it. So if you are going to use it and you are a small team, just make sure you think about how you're going to use it. Try and keep things very, very simple, otherwise it will get heavyweight and you will find it becomes counterproductive. So that is definitely more advice than a disadvantage. It is an incredibly powerful tool, but just keep that in mind when you choose it. Okay, finally, it is reputation, and this ties back to some of the things before. Now, Atlassian, when they launched over 20 years ago, written by developers for developers, they were kind of a cool company to work for. They had developers' thoughts and ideas in their process and their approach, and they were a pretty cool company to associate yourself with, if you like. But over the years, Atlassian has become a huge multi-million pound, dollar organisation. And as such, it sort of gained itself a reputation that is associated with large enterprise organisations like Atlassian, the Microsofts of the world and the Apples of the world and all those kind of things. And it suffers a little bit, it's almost suffers a little bit from its own success, if you like. And it has got itself a bit of a reputation over the years. A lot of people, when I walk into organizations, when you talk about Jira, they're like, oh, Jira, really? Oh, crikey, I hate that tool. Now, part of it is, it's twofold. So part of it relates to some of the points that I talked about earlier, which is around how it's been implemented in a particular organization. So some people have gone in heavy and it's particularly complicated and it's a big mess and there's custom fields all over the place and there's custom forms and you're capturing information that you're never going to need, and it's just driving everybody crazy, and it slows things right down. It brings a bad reputation for the tool, even though it's not technically the tool's fault. So that is one thing. But others, it is also a little bit of a tool that people love to hate. It represents process and it represents SDLC and in some cases represents management, and so people can be a little bit cold to it big bad Atlassian, I want to go and use this open source tool over here that's going to do me a better job. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's an absolutely fine argument to have. If you think there's a tool out there that's going to do a better job for you, go and use it. Don't take it from me that you should go and use Jira because I'm on this video telling you so. And quite the opposite, in fact. I think if there is a tool that's out there that's right for you, go and use that tool. Jira is not going to be the answer to all of your problems. But the reputation thing, try and ignore that a little bit. Try and ignore what the industry, what people around you are saying, talking about it. You'll get your Azure DevOps people who are very much in your Azure DevOps, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with Azure DevOps at all. But you may find that that they're a little bit biased that way, and that's what they know, and Jira's rubbish because of that. So just think about those things, make the decision for yourself, go and investigate the tool. Think about some of the pros and cons that I've talked about. Go and investigate it. Get yourself a trial. We will be talking about how you can get yourself set up with Jira really, really easily in the next video. So we will go and have a look at that. So there you go. Those are the pros and cons of Jira. Let's just wrap up now, and I'll talk about what's coming up in the next video. Well, I hope you found that useful, and I hope you are going to go and have a bit of a think about what you want to do next. If you're looking at this video, chances are you've been thinking about Jira or Confluence, or both. So maybe you want to be thinking to yourself a little bit more around whether you think it's absolutely right for you, whether it's the right tool, whether it's going to fit the bill. So hopefully that was useful and gives you some food for thought to allow you to go and have a bit of a think about whether this is the route that you want to take. So just the last point really for this video now is that I just want to talk a little bit about what's coming up next. So in the next video, we will be talking about how to get Jira set up really, really simply. So if you are definitely thinking about using Jira going forward, then I want to show you just how you can get it installed. It's really, really simple. I say installed, it's a SaaS product now, it's a web product, so you don't need to go and install anything on your computer, not anymore. So I'm just going to talk you through the setup and installation process and allow you to just talk a little bit about some of the high level elements of Jira so you can go and find a few things easily. We will be diving into some of the more specific elements of setting up projects / spaces, and we'll talk about that later on, and hierarchy and workflows and all of those kind of things. But if you just want to get going out of the box, I will show you how to do that and how to get yourself started, and hopefully it will give you an opportunity to evaluate the tool a little bit as well without breaking the bank or tying yourself into a contract. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me on this new channel. If you do enjoy these videos and you want to make sure that you don't miss any future content, please do hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit the bell icon as well to get any notifications for any future videos that are coming your way. I'd love to see you here. So until the next time, I'll see you around. Bye for now.